Hi, I'm Patrick and this is the Mach-E vlog. Just over 1 year ago, we had solar panels installed on our roof right above me, and we're going to dive into, how it's been going, how much energy we've been producing, and was it worth it, anything that we want to change, future steps, and all that good stuff coming up. So let's go. First, let me go ahead and give you a little bit of background. If you want, you can actually get a lot more detail. We have a couple of solar videos. We'll put links down in the description. When we were looking at companies, evaluating what companies we wanted to go with, and during the install process, and it was a long, not really a long process, but it was a lot of thought going into it. We moved into our house in December 2022. And we were going to get solar at some point. We ended up having to rush to get solar because they changed the net metering rules here in California just about the time that we bought our house, literally before our stuff had even been completely moved in. Because they changed the net metering rules, or were going to change the net metering rules, it meant that we sort of had to go ahead, move up our install, get it installed much sooner than what we were expecting. And that sort of led, which decision we were making on, first of all, picking a solar installer, as well as whether we were going with battery. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into all of that. One thing that I do want to get out of the way, we use Energy Sage during that. Energy Sage is basically this website that can educate you on solar, home battery systems, home backup systems, as well as they're getting into heat pumps and converting other appliances like your water heater over to electric as well. It was a fantastic resource. One of the best things that I liked about it is we were able to put in our information, where we lived, what our utility bill was, and things like that. And they put it out there to companies that are also in the Energy Sage umbrella, all of these different installers in our area. They were able to send us quotes, and we were able to sort of see those and sort of filter out all of those. And one of the things I liked about it is there was a control panel where we could, or a dashboard, I would say, where we could see all of those quotes side by side, and then start breaking them down and getting into the nitty-gritty details. So that's a whole nother deal. Go watch that video. But again, if you want a good starting place for your own location, check out Energy Sage. A lot of the stuff that we're going to give you today is going to be, how our system is functioning, how it worked for us, and our, pros and cons, and what we plan on doing next, that type of thing. It really does vary based on your individual house, what trees you have shading your roof. Of course, it also varies greatly by, who your energy provider is, how expensive your energy is, how much sun you get. So there's so many factors, and that's the type of thing that Energy Sage can help you get through. And if you have any questions, they actually have consultants that can sort of answer some of those questions that aren't a salesman with one of the companies that might be doing the install. Because I don't know about you, sometimes when you're, whether it's dealing with a plumber or drywall person, whatever, it's sort of they're going to pitch you on what may make them the most money, or you worry that they may be doing that. With Energy Sage, they have some consultants. So check them out if you haven't already. So let's go ahead and get into the system that we had designed and installed. Let me zoom in a little bit on this. So this is basically the blueprints and the permitting package that they submitted for our house. We ended up going with 16 panels. I think it was a 6.48 kilowatt system. And based on, where they try to get that information is, they want to try to size it right for you as an individual in your house. And they try to take into account where your house is located, how your roof is slanted, what direction your solar panels are going to point, all of those different things, as well as your past energy usage. So we were literally negotiating to get this installed the same month that we moved in. So we didn't have like a energy history, which is what they try to base a lot of stuff off of as far as like your sizing. So, you know, it was very difficult for us to try to get that sizing information to them to accurately portray what our energy usage might be. We had a little bit of information from neighbors that we talked to. I can tell you that, you know, since then, like we figured out, we use about 10 kilowatt hours per day outside of charging our EV. And that is like the biggest factor for a lot of people is going to be if you're trying to charge an EV, you need to go big. And we tried to go big and we did. So that's good news. But you can see like the layout that they picked, it's basically the panels are facing sort of southeast, which means we don't get quite as much production in the evening or afternoon hours. But we didn't have much facing southwest and nothing, you know, facing directly south. We have a lot that's facing northwest, which is definitely not where you want to put your panels at. So they put 16 in, and it's sort of like looks like a weird layout. And a lot of that is just because there's a couple of vents from like the plumbing systems below. So they were trying to work around that. But in the reality is like, especially the way we come home to our house every day, like I never ever see the panels, even going, you know, walking the other direction. It's like, unless I look, I don't see them. So let me see. I think there's a couple of other things down here. I mean, this is just like the nitty gritty tech details of like how they were hooking things up, how they're wiring them up. And I'll get into a little bit of this stuff because a lot of people were asking like, what equipment did we go with? We did not go with Tesla. A lot of people thought we might choose Tesla. And one of the reasons we didn't is like I heard from not necessarily personal neighbors, but like in our neighborhood through next door that Tesla was running really far behind and we wanted to go ahead and get the ball rolling and get this stuff installed. So we went with a local company called Baker Electric. And they have like a Baker Home Energy, Baker Solar, like sort of subsidiaries. They've been around since the 30s, I believe, in the local area. Had a very good reputation, got recommended by a lot of people. During the pandemic, there were apparently a bunch of solar companies that popped up. My worry about going with a relatively new company was with the new rules coming into effect in California, a lot of solar installs are going to drop off, and they have. And will these new companies stay in business? I figured Baker Home Electric or Baker Electric, they do a lot of industrial stuff, a lot of home stuff. They do a lot of things other than solar. They do HVAC and, you know, all sorts of things. So I figured, you know, there's a good chance they'll be around because, you know, you want a labor warranty. They have like a 10-year labor warranty. A lot of the equipment's warranted for 25 years. So that's great. And then of course it was like down to the equipment. And of course we weren't going to necessarily go like we're equipment experts. We listened to a lot of companies and what they were sort of recommending. With the old net metering rules, basically nobody recommended getting a battery. And that's because we can get credits for producing excess energy to San Diego Gas and Electric. And it's we don't have to worry about a lot of power outages. There's not like a lot of thunderstorms or anything like that. In fact, we haven't had a power outage in the past year at all. So we didn't need a battery for for power outages, and we get decent amount of credits with the old NEM 2.0 rules. That it just made more sense to just like pump it into the grid and then use those credits to get energy when we need it. So we didn't go with the battery. Another reason we didn't go with the battery is under the old rules. If we add panels, it bumps us to the new rules, which would change things financially dramatically as far as the economics of those credits. But we can add a battery down the road and that won't put us in the new rules. So we figured get all the panels we can get now, and then down the road we can always add a battery. And I won't get into too many details again because I think I went over this in previous videos, but they're using microinverters, basically a mini inverter on each panel that feeds down into our system. if you do your research, if you go to like the Energy Sage, they'll tell you some of the differences between microinverters and string inverters. Basically, the biggest advantage of microinverters is that each panel has its own inverter. So if you have a problem, like if one panel goes down, you're not taking down your entire system. And it's not affecting the overall, output. It's just like that one panel can go down. It does, mean that they're, it's usually a bit more expensive. And the fact that if there's now, we have 16 panels, so there's 16 points of failure. So, there's pros and cons. Consider it for your own, preferences, which you want to do. We really like the idea that, like, first of all, we can, like have one panel go down and we're not really suffering. We can just deal with that as we have time. The whole system doesn't go down. As well as the fact that we can monitor exactly what's going on. Because that's the other thing is like, if you have string inverters and there's one panel that goes down, it's sort of hit or miss. It's like you can't really tell which panel it is. You got to just sort of troubleshoot and figure it out. With microinverters, it's very easy to tell, and I'll show you that in a minute. Of course, Enphase, it ties into like their Envoy system. So there's the Enphase app. It's really fantastic on the phone. I'll show you what it looks like on the web interface coming up. And the panels that we're using, and here you can see I'm on the Energy Sage website. And this is another good thing about Energy Sage is like you can see reviews of all the equipment, and it tells you like the actual technical specifications and the warranties on like the panels, 25 years, for example, on this one. But the Rec Alpha Pure 405 AA may not be saying all of that right or whatever, but those are the panels. They're considered one of the best in the industry. A lot of panels are very similar. So you can do your own research on all of the exact equipment that your provider is going to be, or your installer is going to be providing you. Or you can just sort of use like Energy Sage and just double check what they tell you. So, but that's getting into our system details. And then here's a drone image that we took from above our house, and this is the one that's our house right there with the weird sort of layout. You can sort of tell like our neighbors had some older installs, so they, their panels have like those white outlines. Now it's sort of like they're sort of like your monitors. It's like a frameless design basically. So there's a bit more, hopefully getting more solar input. By the way, that little red car out there is Kyle Connor's Leaf, if you follow AutoSpec YouTube. So this is the Enphase Envoy web app. The app that's on your phone actually looks even better than this. It's really slick, but all the data is exactly the same. So rather than like have the phone screen up, I'm just going to use the web interface. But just as you can see, let's see, where is it over here? Like the phone app looks really good as well. So let's just go ahead and dive into some numbers. I'm going to show you a little bit of like what this screen means. Look at a couple of individual days, but we're going to try to look at more of like the lifetime or past years usage looks. And today was sort of a unique day. We had a car that we were reviewing that we had to turn back in. So I charged during the day. So that's why this graph looks a little bit funky, but all this information looks a little bit odd. It's like there's a lot of numbers on here, and we'll try to break them down for you as I go along. So basically you can see up here with total energy, it's showing me how much we imported from the grid, which is 8.5 kilowatt hours. And then over here, we've exported 11.5 kilowatt hours. So our net exported is 3.0 kilowatt hours. And then down in the bottom left, it's showing that we produced 8.5 kilowatt hours so far of solar energy. And mix all of this up, we actually consume 15.5 kilowatt hours. So that includes, of course, the refrigerator, everything from the outlets, and then, of course, like I said, we charged the EV. This graph down here on the bottom is basically showing, I think it's 15-minute segments, maybe, But you can see like in the middle of the night, it's showing like imported and consumed, of course, are equivalent. Very little usage. So like 0.2 kilowatt hours imported, 0.2 kilowatt hours consumed. You can see as the sun came up, we started producing solar. We started consuming more as well, of course, with the coffee pot, turning on the computers and stuff as we work from home. So you see that we're using a little bit more energy. And but at the same time, there's a little bit in here where we were exporting. So you see some little bits of gray in here. Then I had to charge that EV. So you see the huge spikes here in gray that's in the positive. That actually means I'm importing energy at that time. In the negative down here, that means that's what we were consuming at that time. So you can already see charging an EV can have a huge impact on your energy usage and on the graph here. Once I unplug that, all of a sudden, we were producing good solar, and you can see that the amount that we were exporting also increased significantly. Pretty cool to see this, and you can like turn these on and off. Like if you just want to see your solar production, you can turn off the consumed and import exported. You can also, let's see, we'll just turn on import exported, so you can sort of see like when we were pulling from the grid versus when we were putting back in the grid. We can look at just consumed, so we can see, all of those are pulling energy, whether it's from the grid or from solar, with the huge spike for the EV charging. And then over on the right, it's showing me like how much this is all worth, like how much I produced, how much that would be worth, environmental impact, and like net exported, which is that same as that number over here. But let's go back and look at like a couple of other days that are, interesting. Trying to find like a sort of perfect day. This is sort of, I wouldn't say a perfect day, but perfect day for solar. And then we had a bit of energy usage, quite a bit of energy usage at night. I think we were running some fans or whatnot. It was a pretty warm day. Sun was out all day. But what's cool is like you can see, like it says that we produced the equivalent of $15.5 of solar energy. I think they're basing it on 41 cents per kilowatt hour, which I know for a lot of you probably sounds outrageous. Here in San Diego, it's just crazy how much electricity costs. But it's also looking at, 61.9 pound CO2 reduction based off what we use. And I love this part here, like we exported 24.6 kilowatt hours. Let me go back to one very special day. Okay, jumping back to, if you remember, on April 8th, we had a solar eclipse. I think this graph is just so cool. Can you tell when the solar eclipse was here, and the fact that here in San Diego, I think we had about 60% coverage from the eclipse. And you could, it didn't dip all the way down to zero production, but it did make a pretty big impact in our production that day. That's a perfect curve if we actually went and zoomed in on it. So I just think that's pretty cool. Like you could actually see the effects of the solar eclipse on our production for that day. Again, I don't want to focus on too many days here, but like on a good day, and this is looking over the past year, there are very few days where we hit over 40 kilowatt hours. There were some days that were down like 11 kilowatt hours. Even when it's raining, we generally produce some. I'll see if I can find one real quick of a rainy day. Okay, so here's a mostly sunny day, March 28th, and then March 30th, we had a lot of rain. So we only produced 7.3 kilowatt hours, which is one of our lowest production days that I can recall from the past year. But it is pretty cool, even with clouds and rain, that we can produce almost enough to cover our usage for the day. So we consumed 8.3 kilowatt hours, but only produced 7.3 kilowatt hours. So we imported 1 kilowatt hour for the entire day. So that's pretty cool. Next up, I'm going to jump over to the year, because now we're getting into the point of like where we're seeing like, did this all pay off, and did we produce enough solar electricity so that we had a $0 bill, which we didn't, but we did. And that's a little bit complicated. We're getting there though. but you can sort of see like, so like April, March, February, January, like each one of these months, we're producing more electricity than we actually use for each month. So that's actually great news. So those 4 months we're all at net positive. So we looking pretty good there. And then we also, going back here, every month except for 1 month, that was December, was a net positive. And then April and March don't count because those are like partial months. They were testing things out or whatever. So this month is December was the only month where we were net negative. And then I attribute that a lot to we're doing a lot of driving. We're producing a much solar, partially because of rain and clouds, but also because those are the shortest days of the year, around December 21st, of course, or around there. So let me go back over to here. We're going to also, before we go into more details, try not to jump around too much, but just want to show you some of the other features of this system. I can look at like the individual solar panels. If I zoom in, that's our roof layout, and see how much each panel has produced over the lifetime. I can check it by day, whatever. So I think this is really cool. So like we're produced 625 kilowatt hours per panel since it's been installed. So that's pretty cool. And then overall, the system has produced 9.86 megawatt hours in the past year. Okay, what's next? Let's go look at some of the data again. I try to consolidate it. The Enphase website is cool if you want to like poke around and look at a lot of things, but what I wanted to do is try to make it a little bit easier to understand and then start formulating whether it was worth it for us. And again, it's pretty complicated, unfortunately. But anyways, so these are the numbers for each month. So we have our energy produced, energy consumed, exported to grid, and imported from grid. And what I did is I sort of looked at each column and did like the best month and the worst month. So our best month for energy produced was July 2023. We produced 1,025 kilowatt hours, which is fantastic. February was our lowest month at 559.3 kilowatt hours. And you can see December was right in there. As I mentioned, that was our only like negative month that we had. Energy consumed, July was also a very busy month for us, driving around, doing whatever. So that's why that usage was high. Plus we probably, we had like a little portable AC. We don't have whole house AC. I think we ran it some in July as well. So those things added up. We used 810 kilowatt hours, but still less than what we produced. Our lowest month, so sort of surprisingly, if you didn't know what was going on, was September at 430 kilowatt hours, but we literally were traveling like 3 out of the 4 weeks of September. So that's why that one was so low. You can also see there's some other low months down in here, like February, we did some traveling to Chicago for the Chicago Auto Show, for example. So we'll move next to exported to grid. Of course, this makes sense that we exported a lot in July. We also imported a lot, but we still had a net positive for that month. September, we imported the least amount from the grid, 238.9 kilowatt hours. Again, we were gone most of the month. December was our lowest amount of actually exported to the grid. So, but then you start looking at these numbers down here. I think one of the things that's the coolest that I was very excited to see is we produce 9,164.1 kilowatt hours for the entire year. So to me, that was fantastic. The system's performing as it was designed. So fantastic for us. And then of course, like we're at a net positive for the year. Let me go over here. I put this in a chart as well so that you can take a look at this. And what I'll try to do is I'll put a link down below so that if you want to take a look at this spreadsheet, you can dive into the numbers yourself and just see. But one of the things that was interesting to me over the past year is and I should have known before we got into this, but our usage dipped and peaked at different times of the year. So I thought it might, like, our energy usage would go up during the winter because we're using the lights more and whatever. But really it was super, super dependent on charging our EV. So if we drove a lot in a month, then it went up. The usage went up. So that's the biggest variable for us. And because we work from home, most of the time we're not very, it's not like a consistent usage. Where we're having peaks in usage is like when people come to visit, or we have like a lot of appointments and errands, then all of a sudden we get a lot more usage and we're charging a lot more as well. But it was also interesting to see like energy produced, which is this blue line, and sort of see like, of course it goes up in the summer months, and we have various dips and whatever. And a lot of that's of course weather dependent, or most of that's weather dependent. I guess all of it's weather dependent. What am I thinking? But again, something that I think surprised me, and that's because we're new to the San Diego area, is like May is not one of the best months. You would think we're getting a lot more sun at that time. There would be a lot more solar production, but they have what they call here is May gray, and it's extended into June as well. June should be like a fantastic month for solar. But we have like a morning fog that doesn't burn off for several hours. So that's why you have a little bit of lower production in like May and June than I expected, and maybe the same for you. Of course, that'll vary by your area. We just have that marine layer that likes to come in May and June that sort of hinders our solar production. Let me hop over here, and one of the things I did want to talk about was, as I mentioned a couple of times, our usage varies greatly based off of whether we're using the EV or not. And so if you are doing your planning, something that I found that was lacking from pretty much every installer is they sort of try to just throw in a exact number for, if you have an EV, this is how much more kilowatt hours per year you need to produce. But really, your driving history, you can sort of estimate this. So if you know how many miles driven, so if you drove, we'll just say 15,000 miles per year, and you have a car that's like 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour efficiency, that means you're going to use about 6,000 kilowatt hours that year just for your EV. If it's a little bit more efficient, that would drop it down to 5,000 miles at an example of 3 miles per kilowatt hour. And hopefully you know how efficient your car is. If not, you can calculate that out. If you have any questions, maybe I'll do something like that to show you how. But like in the Mach-E, the car that we have and drive the most, it tells us like our average efficiency. And we have the GT, and it's about 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour when we're driving, because we're doing a lot of freeway driving. It's not the most efficient either, especially with our summer tires on there, but that's another story. But I can sort of look at this and very quickly see, like, I think we were down maybe 10,000 miles that we were charging and driving it, driving the car around the local area. So that was like 4,000 kilowatt hours. If I, all of a sudden had to go back into an office and started, driving 20,000 miles a year, that would be an extreme case. I would need an additional 4,000 kilowatt hours out of the solar system to be able to cover that excess usage. So if you're trying to, plan out a system, you can make a chart like this. It's fairly simple, but you can calculate how much energy you're going to need based off of how efficient your car is. And of course, if you have two EVs, that may impact things as well. So those are all things you just sort of have to consider on your own. We'll get into some more details, and we're going to go to SDG&E next. But just based off of what Enphase, the data that they were giving us, was it worth it? So our system was about $26,000, and I say about $26,000 because we added in some things. We had to redo our roof. We had some repairs. So we included that in our cost of our system. It was a little bit itemized, but sort of not. You know how it goes, like when they were bundling things. They gave us some discounts overall because we were spending so much because we had to get the roof done. We also had to put in an EV outlet in the garage as well. So they said they did it for free, but nothing's ever free. Great news is we had some great financing deals at the time of like 1.9% financing. So bottom line is like the portion of what we're paying per month that's for our solar install is about $121 per month. A lot of calculations again around here in the San Diego area. Our electricity varies from like 17 cents at night to like 60 plus cents during peak hours. So a lot of people, what we do is we just sort of average our energy costs and say 41 cents per kilowatt hour. I try to dive in and get some more accurate information on exactly like when we spent our energy, when we produced it. There are some shortcomings in my monitoring and the data that was available to me. So I'll get into that in a little bit later of like what we're going to try to do to get a better picture next year. But for now, we're just using rough estimates. So what I did is I basically took the numbers from Enphase, calculated it out at 41 cents per kilowatt hour. So came up with a value, which is why I put that in quotation marks. So energy produced, that 9,164 kilowatt hours. We produce about $3,700 in energy value. So that's really cool. Like I was really glad to see that number. Feels very good when we're paying only $121 a month. Energy consumed, this is on the downside, is like we consumed like $3,000 of energy this year. But we exported 2,500, imported 1,800. So our net was, we should have had like an excess of $742. Of course, the energy company doesn't provide us with all of that cash back. They throughout the year, they do it with credits. And then at the end of the year, they have what they call a true up bill. And a true up bill means like based off of, do we have excess credits or are we short credits at the end of the year, how much we get back or how much we owe. And of course, if we owe, they charge the big number of like, this is what you actually owed. But if we have credits that we're getting back, those credits aren't worth hardly anything. So I think we got back like $130 or something ridiculously low. And of course, they calculate things differently. They're looking at all of that time of use stuff in 15-minute segments throughout the day, and they're monitoring that. And we'll get into the SDG&E bill now so that you can see what that looks like. But overall, bottom line is like we produced more than we needed, but we didn't actually have a $0 bill. Then we go ahead and log into my SDG&E account, and I'll show you why that is. Okay, I'm logged into our SDG&E account, and like you have to have like a master's degree in accounting to figure out everything. I just pulled up one of the more recent months just to show you some of the confusing stuff in here. And of course, we also have gas charges that we have to deal with as well. But anyways, like here's like the electricity portion. We have so many different time of use plans. It's sort of ridiculous. There's different ones, like if you have an EV and you can pay more, like you can pay like a $16 fee, but then you get really discounted rates at night. We're not on that because we haven't been charging enough at night to make that worth it. But there's just a lot of complications in this. And they're breaking things down, and it's like electricity delivery. They had different rates within the month. So here's like 2 days where the rates were this, and then 27 days in the billing period, the rates were different. And then it's like you have your on peak, your off peak, and your super peak, which actually varies by month. There's March and April are different than other months of the year. It's just super, super confusing. So I don't want to spend a bunch of time in this, but I'll just go ahead and show you like some of the details here and scroll through this. And this is very specific to SDG&E, so I don't want to like confuse you and also be so specific with one energy provider. But there's like our time periods of when there's on peak and off peak, which is mostly as expected. 4 to 9 p.m. is like our on peak, and then midnight to 6 a.m. for the most part is like our super off peak. And there's some changes depending on winter and summer, and March and April are slightly different. It's just frustrating. But I wanted to get down here because this is sort of like the net metering summary for the entire year. And you can sort of see like every month, the different amount of energy, but in addition to like just the monthly totals, it's given me the monthly totals for each category of electricity. So on peak, off peak, super off peak, and it's giving me all of these different totals. So all told, it's like we've had all these different charges, and then that equates to credits. If you can point me to a place to better understand this, that would be greatly appreciated. But I just really don't like the way that they break down all of these different things. And it made me realize like I haven't done a good job of monitoring everything. Actually, you have our system size listed wrong as well. So anyways, and it's the reason I haven't done a good job is like we don't have the tools installed yet, which hopefully we will. We'll get to that. But yeah, it just gets super confusing. And as well, of course, there's minimum charges that we have to be assessed just because we have like distribution charges, and they're trying to add like another $24 fee on top of that. So we don't have like a $0 bill. We still have at least some that we're paying, but then we can use some of our credits to pay parts of that, but other parts we're not allowed to use it to pay. So just really, really, really confusing. But over here, I mean, I think for me, I think the cool parts is like the year-to-date summaries, and that's net metering year-to-date. So it was like last April to this March. So year-to-date, we used 370 on-peak kilowatt hours. We had negative 3,829 kilowatt hours, and that's because a lot of that, we're producing our solar a lot from like 10 to 2, which is considered off-peak. And then we also used a lot of energy during super off-peak because that's when we charge, midnight to 6 a.m. So all total, we had negative 1,600 kilowatt hours all totaled for the year that we produce more going into the grid than taking from it. And then there's, the NIM charges and credits. And like I said, that's confusing. So this is our usage as according to SDG&E. And it doesn't align with Enphase for a couple of reasons. One is that Enphase is basically just sort of monitoring, and it's fairly accurate. It should be about 98% accurate, but can be deviations in how it monitors the electricity versus what the utility is looking at. And then also they're doing billing pay periods, which ours usually ends on like the 28th of the month. And Enphase is just literally just going by month to month, so the calendar month. So that's why there's some variations and differences. But it's very interesting to see, again, like you can sort of see the same numbers that we saw over in Enphase, we can see with our utility provider as well. And these, like the blue, of course, is the off-peak. Like I said, that's when we're generating a lot of our solar. So that's why those are the negative parts going into the grid, because we're producing so much in the off-peak hours. And then the super off-peak usage, you can see those are, the months that we drove a lot is like when we had a lot of super off-peak usage. And then in December, for example, that's when we actually did a lot of on-peak because it gets dark earlier. We're using more lights and energy during the on-peak hours. So a lot of stuff to dive into and look at there if you want to do that. But overall, like the main thing really is we got our electricity bill as low as we could possibly get it. We produced more energy overall than what we were taking from the grid. Our first year we were worried, like we were trying to produce as much energy as we could, and we didn't know how little energy we would produce in the January, February timeframe. So we sort of wanted to make sure we had excess, but as I showed you with Enphase, it looks like we are producing excess in every month except for December. So that was great news overall. If you look over here at the SDG&E monthly summary, it looks like they consider in January, the January billing period, we also use some of our credits as well. So December, we used 151 kilowatt hours, and in January, 15 kilowatt hours. So, producing a lot extra in every month, but 2, and then 1 was barely used extra energy in not that big of a deal, 15 kilowatt hours, and 151 isn't big. That's basically lower than pretty much every other month except for a couple. So great news overall. Like, that was our goal. We also want to have the option to drive more at some point if necessary, as well as we may add like a heat pump or something like that would get rid of our gas furnace, as well as providing cooling solutions during the summer. So we may need that extra capacity. For now, though, it's almost like I should just turn on all the lights and not worry about it. But trying to be a good environmental person anyways, and still turning off lights and conserving energy, even though it doesn't necessarily benefit us tremendously financially. So overall, again, like just really happy with our system. We're producing excess energy for $121 a month. Let me go look at something real quick, or bring up something real quick just to show you. Going back to our billing history over here, as I said, like we moved in December of 2022, so we don't have like an extensive history of our bills, but you can see January and March are our only 2 like full months in this house without solar, where we were here the whole time, and you can see how big those bills were. So $387, $350. Considering the fact, even though we have some bills in here, this one in May where it was canceled and then corrected, that's as they were sort of adjusting our bill because they screwed up bringing us into the net metering system. But even our most expensive bill at $98, I'm not sure. I have to go dig that one up and see why. But basically like $20 bills, $19 bills, $15 bills, and that's including our gas. So looking overall, like $20 a month plus our $121 that we're paying, it's far, far less than the $350, $387 that we saw for those 2 months prior to getting solar installed. So I consider that a win. And as well, it's like we know, that we're producing a lot of green energy. So, great for the environment, saving us money, adding value to our house. It's like a win-win-win. Super happy with it. Now, where do we go in the future? We have lots of plans. I want to like track this information better in the future. I want to make our home smarter as well. So I'm going to get into doing some of that type of stuff. We're looking at like bouncing off of this solar stuff and expanding, doing some videos on various things. I'll show you just a couple of things that are sort of related that aren't. But if we had a video, we had like a plumbing disaster. So we have some smart water leak sensors that we're going to be putting in, including some door and window open and close sensors. These are from Akara. They sent us some cool stuff to test out. There's a hub that they sent us as well. If you're interested, we're going to be, looking at and setting up all of this stuff. But where it also comes into play is like we're going to do some better energy, management. We're looking at getting the Emporia View 3 energy monitor. We have an Emporia charger out in the garage, but this Emporia View 3 energy monitor, what it'll allow me to do is sort of track energy usage throughout the house. So this is why all this stuff is like integrated and related and all. It's just, it all ends up tying together. But with the energy usage, then I can see like where we have excess energy, like the TV on the wall with the sound bar. I found out that was using like 60 watts because I had it like in the wrong standby mode or whatever. So now we sort of fixed that. It's not using that much electricity. And I mean 60 watts when it was off, like it's powered off. It shouldn't be doing anything, but it was using 60 watts just sitting there, which was crazy. So we want to do some energy management, but it also means I can track exactly like our energy usage, and then give you a better idea, hopefully next year, of exactly like how much was it worth producing that energy based off of the time of day and what that value of that energy would be at that time of day. So like try to figure that stuff out a little bit better, but also manage things. And then one of the things I'm really excited about, like I said, we have the Emporia EV charger out in our garage. One of the things that we can do is we combine it with this View 3 energy monitor from Emporia. We could potentially do some stuff of like saying, if we have 12 amps extra energy being produced by the solar panels, or 3 kilowatts, then maybe what we can do is take that 3 kilowatts and go ahead and charge the car during the day versus send it to the grid and then buying it back later in the day. Doesn't necessarily make the most financial sense always to do that, but being environmentally conscious, if it could be really nice to be able to do that. Or like today when I had to charge that car, but I was vastly exceeding what solar we were producing. That's a great example with the combining those two together. You can program it to just use your excess solar, and if it's only like charging at 1 or 2 kilowatts, that's fine. And then like, later in the day when I'm producing like 4 kilowatts extra, then it can send all of that to the car. So excited to try some of that stuff out. The combination of the Emporia energy monitoring with the Emporia EV charger is really exciting. I'll put links to all of this below so you can take a look and learn about it yourself as well. The other thing, of course, we also want to tie all this in. I want to just show this screen really quickly because I just started getting into Home Assistant again. I had it set up for a while, but I like completely rebuilt the system. And that allows me to take like these, water sensors from our car, have it report in here, and then trigger and do automations. But I can also look at this. This is like my energy dashboard, and I can see exactly like what the Emporia, what the in-phase system is reporting to Home Assistant right now. Right now, I'm putting 2.93 kilowatt hours back into the grid, or not right now. That's actually what it's done for the day. So 2.93 kilowatt hours according to this dashboard here real quick. So lots of stuff planned for the future. If you guys are interested, I can make videos on all of this stuff, try to keep it a little bit more organized next time. But there's a lot of really neat things that we can do to track all of this solar energy usage, but also make things smarter and reduce our energy usage as well. But also makes the home just a lot smarter because, if you saw our other video, we had, we'll just say $20,000 worth of damage because I didn't have one of these in the right place to tell me where there was a water leak. And that would have been very nice to have. So, yeah, what do you guys think? If you're considering doing solar, where are you located? Like, what obstacles do you have to get solar installed? What are your biggest concerns? I know for a lot of people, like we moved from Colorado and they're interested in getting solar added, but because their energy costs are so low, it's really hard to justify putting in a solar system on their roof because it doesn't make necessarily financial sense unless you're going to be there for an extended period of time. For us, because we got in under NEM 2.0 rules, because our electricity is so expensive, it just made sense to go ahead and do it. And so far we've been right. We're saving, as you can see, depending on how you look at it, maybe a couple $100 a month based off of what our monthly payment is for solar versus what our electricity bills could have been. So a couple $100 per month is savings is pretty great. I am worried about in the future, like what if we start driving a lot more or add a heat pump that uses a lot more electricity? We also are looking at like a heat pump water heater potentially. So there's a lot of things that we may consider, a lot of things that we want to explore. And it's up to you guys if we explore this in a video or we just do it on our own separately. So this is where we've gone back into, talking about, do we do another channel? Do we get included on this channel and just make like a playlist? We don't know, but it's been fun exploring this with you guys. Hopefully you appreciated all of the information that we gave you today. Thank you for watching this video. I know it was very long and just sort of just walking you through everything step by step. I didn't want to do like just a boring presentation. I was trying to like, let's walk you through everything so that you can see the real stuff and not make it like a sales pitch or anything like that. But thank you for watching the whole video. If you have any questions, drop them below. We'll try to get to those as quickly as we can. And if you are a patron member, thank you for being a patron member at the Unbridled, the Engaged, or the Whispered level. Our Unbridled and Engaged members, their names are scrolling across the bottom, but we also appreciate our Whisper members as well as our members that are on YouTube. You can join and become a member there as well. Lots of options. All this info is down in the description. But Liv isn't here. She's over there working. I took a long lunch break to come record this. But as she would say, no matter what that doesn't really apply. No matter how your house is powered, enjoy the electricity you have or something like that. Boy, that's really bad. She's going to be so disappointed. Anyways, bye.